Don't touch me.
You're not going in, sir.
Let the record show that you just battered me.
Step back.
And you're using...
Back up, sir! Back up, sir! Sir, back up!
Oh my God!
He threatened the police officer who testified against him.
This is Percy Phillips, who's facing charges for retaliating against a witness in Louisville, Kentucky. Phillips, who was already convicted of assault and robbery, threatened a police officer who testified against him in that case. Now, a hearing was underway to determine whether the 45-year-old was competent to stand trial. Phillips' attorney, Jay Lambert, argued he was unable to mount a defense since his client refused to talk to him.
Mr. Phillips is presently incompetent to stand trial. If we end up in trial, there is no way I can competently even frame a defense. I have asked Mr. Phillips, what do you want me to say or do at your trial? And he won't tell me. He literally, for years, has not said a word.
Lambert even predicted what was to follow later in the courtroom.
Mr. Phillips has shared that he doesn't know exactly what he'll do in certain situations in the courtroom. He thinks he just may explode.
Then, while the prosecutor was making his argument, something unexpected happened.
He threatened the police officer who testified against him.
Phillips, who up until that moment had shown no emotion, suddenly exploded. An officer promptly tased Phillips, and the defendant dropped like a stone.
He threatened the police officer who testified against him.
Even though Phillips lay in the courtroom tased and confused, he still wasn't done.
Just relax.
Phillips faced no additional charges for his courtroom outburst. While Percy Phillips got the shock of his life for his actions, what happens when a defendant lashes out in court? Like in the case of 27-year-old Kenneth Freeman, who's on trial for a brutal murder in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In January 2019, Freeman stalked and attacked 33-year-old nurse practitioner Carly Bodine at the Frohter Hospital parking garage in what was later deemed a random act of violence.
Investigators also say Freeman hid behind a pole in a Frohter Medical College parking garage, violently attacked Bodine, drove her to a different parking garage, leaving her there bleeding under her own car.
According to reports, Freeman hid behind a pillar in the parking garage, grabbed Bodine as she walked towards her car, brutally beat her, and then left her for dead. When police arrived, they found Bodine trapped under her car, frozen to the ground. She later died from her injuries. Freeman was arrested hours later and charged with first-degree intentional homicide. Then, at a hearing, as the defense attorney argued for his client's incompetency, Freeman decided to give the judge a live demo.
I do have reason to believe that competency is an issue in this case.
Well, I have something to say.
I would...
This mother... Son...
After Freeman exploded into a profanity-laced outburst, an officer promptly tased the foul-mouthed defendant.
Case.
Well, I have something to say.
I would...
This mother... Son...
Screaming in agony, Freeman was eventually wheeled out of the courtroom. Ultimately, Kenneth Freeman was deemed incompetent to stand trial and was committed for life in the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. While Freeman's actions can be dismissed as mental health issues, what happens when a deputy tases his own colleague? like in the case of Wendell Hollingsworth, who's facing multiple armed robbery charges in Columbus, Ohio. In 2007, 43-year-old Hollingsworth, a career criminal, was accused of robbing parishioners at a Roman Catholic church. His trial was presided by Judge Julie Lynch, who had a previous history with the defendant.
I was prepared for him to misbehave because past experience was he misbehaved.
But pretty sure the judge was not prepared when Hollingsworth accused her and his defense of religious bias and ordered them off the case.
When I sit up here, President, I ain't gonna get a fair trial. This ain't no fair trial. All I ask you to do is follow the story.
The maximum sentence that he could receive is 104 years.
Okay, well, give it to me now. It's unfair. Give it to me. Give me 250 years right now.
What's the deal for telling me how to do my job?
Okay,
What's the deal?
you ain't gonna treat me fair. I'm gonna treat me fair, and you a Catholic. I'm charged of robbing the Catholic Church. I'm gonna get a fair trial.
However, Judge Lynch was having none of it.
Your attorney has been in to see you on numerous occasions. You have spit on him. You have refused to talk to him. This trial is still going forward on Monday. Mr. Wiseman, you are still counsel of record, so you have a weekend to change your attitude, Mr. Hollingsworth.
Those hoping for a change of attitude instead got this. As he was being wheeled into court, Hollingsworth suddenly kicked out at his defense attorney. Court deputies were on him in a flash and attempted to tase the defendant. But in the chaos, one of the other deputies got tased as well. Finally, Hollingsworth was subdued and dragged from the courtroom. Due to his aggressive behavior and courtroom antics, Hollingsworth was strapped to a chair and forced to wear a spit mask for the remainder of his trial. Ultimately, Wendell Hollingsworth was handed the maximum sentence of 93 years in prison. Safe to say he would not be stealing from anyone anytime soon. While a defendant threw kicks in the courtroom, what happens when a judge has to physically restrain a convict? Like in the case of Jacob Larson, who was in a Jackson County court for violating a personal protection order.
You got a bad attitude. You had a bad attitude last time you were in court.
Judge John McBain, known for his no-nonsense conduct, presided over the hearing. A year ago, Judge McBain had signed off on a personal protection order after Larson was accused of stalking a classmate.
We're hanging out at her place of employment. You're putting things all over her car. Her managers have got to come in there and ask you to leave.
The terrified victim appeared in court and narrated her ordeal.
I don't even know him, so I just don't understand how he's so obsessed and keeps messaging me. I have messages from October 9th after we got out of court, and then I have some from the 23rd.
However, Larson blamed the woman for his actions.
To get in it though.
Why do you feel that she's instigating?
But she's posting pictures and whatnot, dragged it to me. All a lot of makeup, hair done, all that stuff, the full nine. She's, subtweeting me and whatnot on Twitter.
Is that true?
I don't have him on Facebook. I don't have him on Twitter. I have him on no social media whatsoever. My Twitter's private.
Judge McBain reminded Larson of what happened when he previously appeared in his court.
I told you to just leave her alone. She was a classmate of yours. She apparently has no interest in
I want her to tell me to leave her alone.
You know what? I told you to leave her alone. And apparently that didn't get through loud and clear. So today, you're going to jail for 3 days.
The defendant then made a ridiculous claim.
You and her are buddy-buddy.
This is when Judge McBain became irate.
You got a bad attitude. You had a bad attitude last time you were in court.
You and her are buddy-buddy.
45 days county jail.
Oh.
Okay. 93 days in the county jail. You want to go for a year? Try it right now. One more word out of you, it'll be a year of counting.
Over Facebook. Hey, bro.
93 days in county.
I ain't never threatened.
Stand up. Cuff them. Stand up.
Buddy, more.
Stand up. You're going to a jail for a year in the county. 365 days county jail.
Can't do that.
Appeal it.
After learning his fate, Larson resisted arrest and made an aggressive move towards the victim.
Put your hands behind your back. Now I'll leave you alone. Tell me to leave you alone. Tell me right now. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands.
Judge McBain sprang into action. As Larson got into a scuffle with a deputy, the judge removed his black robe and decided to help out.
Right now. Take right now.
Even though Judge McBain initially went up to a year in the heat of the moment, once everything calmed down, Larson was sentenced to 93 days in prison. While a defendant got 90 days extra jail time for refusing to cooperate, what happens when you test an officer's patience who's armed with a taser? Like in the case of Robert Peterson, who's facing misdemeanor traffic violation charges in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The 22-year-old was in court after police caught him riding a bike at night without a light.
You have a gun, like I said, because I'm talking to you. It makes me...
This is Robert arguing with officers giving him a ticket for riding his bike at night without a light.
Am I being charged with a crime yet?
From the moment Peterson walked into the county court, it was clear that this wouldn't be a typical security check.
And I'd just like to know where your warrant is.
It's clearly posted on the entrance building.
What? Clearly posted that I have to forfeit my right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure?
Coming into this building.
Yeah, every person is. I'm not a person. I'm a man. I'm not subject to your jurisdiction.
Peterson refused to cooperate because he considered himself a sovereign citizen, a group of people who don't follow any jurisdiction unless they consent to it.
I'm here for one purpose. All right.
You can get or you can leave.
Well, I'll allow you to search, but, I mean...
That has to go through the x-ray machine if you want to come in this building.
What does?
That folder.
That's fine. I mean, I'll do that, but you will be charged a bill. You will be served a bill.
After billing the bailiff, Peterson cleared security and seated himself at the back of the courtroom, where he continued to film.
Excuse me?
There are no cameras in the courtroom.
Yeah, there is.
No, you have to put that away.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Under what authority?
You have to have a court order from a judge before you can have a camera in the courtroom.
Okay, well, I'm going to capture this on video.
You got to turn it off.
It's for both of our protection.
Well, you have to turn it off.
No, thank you.
Then you have to leave the courtroom.
No, thank you.
Soon, more bailiffs joined in the standoff.
Shut the camera off now.
No, thank you. To you touching me or seizing my property, so you need to back up.
Shut the camera off now.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yes, you are.
I'm holding you accountable because you're about to overstep your bounds. That's what you're about to do. And I'm giving you... No, thank you. I will say right here, if you have anything to say to me, say it for the public record.
Step outside now.
No, thank you.
We're not going to disturb the court. Step outside.
Well, I'm not disturbing the court. You are.
The bailiffs decided to clear the courtroom and question Peterson directly. One of the bailiffs saw the funny side of the situation.
What's your first and last name?
I don't have a last name.
You don't have a last name?
No.
And what's your first name?
I don't have a first name either. I've got a name. My name is Robert. You can call me Robert.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a person. See, you deal here with Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction, which deals with persons, which I am not.
What are you? Are you human?
I'm a man.
You're human?
I'm a man, yes.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
No.
You're not a U.S. citizen?
I was not born in Washington, D.C. or any territory of the under federal jurisdiction, so no, I'm not a U.S. citizen.
Which state?
Idaho?
Idaho. Can I see your Idaho state license?
No, I don't have one.
You don't have one?
My person does, but I don't. And I don't wish to create joinder with you.
With the situation seemingly diffused, the bailiffs allowed everyone back into the courtroom, except for one person.
I'm going to go in and speak with the prosecutor. Excuse me.
Camera.
Excuse me. You're blocking my freedom of movement.
I am.
All right. Well, P. Barnes, you just admitted to me that you're violating my rights.
No, I'm not. You can't come in with the camera.
Well, you're violating my rights. And this is also freedom of the press.
From behind you.
This is also freedom of the press. I mean, I don't know what the hell law book you're reading, man, but it doesn't apply to me.
You leave the camera with your mother outside the courtroom and you can come in.
You are not God. You have no jurisdiction over me.
God's not worried about cameras, sir. I am.
All right. Well, why are you worried about cameras? Because you want to do something wrong? Because you want to do something wrong? Because if it's against the rules, that means it's because somebody intends on wronging somebody else. Because they're afraid of being held accountable. P. Barnes.
It's a nice speech, but you're still not coming in.
Well, I mean, I don't have to go in because you can't even issue a warrant for me.
Might as well leave.
Well, no, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to speak with the prosecutor.
You can go in there without the camera.
Well, please step aside. I'm going in.
No, you're not going in.
Don't touch me.
This is when things took a darker turn.
Don't touch me.
You're not going in, sir.
Let the record show that you just battered me.
Step back.
And you're using... Stop, please. I'm not doing anything wrong. Hey, you know what? You guys are really overstepping your bounds right now.
Put the cuffs on him.
Put the cuffs on. What are you arresting me for?
Peterson was charged with 3 counts of battery and 1 count of contempt of court. His defiance continued in court the next day when he refused to stand up for the judge.
I will find you in contempt if you don't rise, sir.
All right, I will rise under protest then.
Fine.
Ultimately, Peterson entered an Alford plea, which meant that he did not admit to guilt, but agreed that the prosecution had enough evidence to convict him, and was let go with just a fine for his original traffic violation charge. While Robert Peterson messed with the wrong bailiff, what happens when an all-out brawl breaks out in the courtroom? We go to the Marion County Judicial Center in Ocala, Florida, where 20-year-old Travis Davis, 23-year-old Keela Richardson, 22-year-old Brandon Banks, and 21-year-old Kelvin Grimmage were all convicted of first-degree murder. 2 years earlier, the 4 men gunned down 28-year-old Courtney London inside his own home, right in front of his children.
All of a sudden, I heard like a boom, and they say, "Miss Diane, say, come please help us." Say, "Please help us." Say, somebody shot my dad. To somebody like Courtney, well, they deserve whatever they got, because it was a shame. And then they showing how they really are with the attack on the courtroom. I mean, that's ridiculous.
After the guilty verdict, the 4 defendants were now in court to learn their fate.
Any legal reason we shouldn't proceed with sentencing today?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So what I've indicated that I would like to do is to have the gentleman get
But suddenly, all hell broke loose. While the judge read their sentences, a deputy attempted to cuff Travis Davis, but he refused to cooperate.
That I would like to do is to have the gentleman get
A second deputy jumped in to assist, while another attempted to handcuff Grimmage. But the murderers were not going down without a fight. Amongst the chaos, Richardson was handcuffed and removed from the courtroom. Meanwhile, Davis started attacking his lawyer, delivering blow after blow to his head. Failing to regain any control, a deputy pulled out a taser and zapped the remaining 3 defendants, including Banks, who didn't even join the melee. A deputy ordered everyone to clear the courtroom. After the dust settled, the defendants said their farewells. Ultimately, all 4 suspects were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, while Travis Davis and his buddies received a well-deserved shock treatment. What happens when a defendant refuses to leave the courtroom?
I'm gonna do it! Taser, taser, taser! Oh my God!
Like in the case of David Haig, who was at a courthouse in Anchorage, Alaska, trying to clear his name for a previous conviction.
No! Oh my God! Oh my God! Taser, taser, taser! Oh my God!
Back in 2005, the 51-year-old big game pilot and guide was convicted of hunting wolves illegally while working with the State Predator Control Program.
You know, you have the attorneys going down, you have the judges going down, and you have the troopers going down. You're one small part of the pocket. A lot of lawyers would agree with me. The reason is all gummed up at the top. You're just one of many.
Now Haig was in court to overturn his conviction. The judge ordered a new hearing at a later date, but Haig was done waiting for justice.
And you my face that way came in and tell the judge. He would have proved that they had screwed me out of a plea deal, that the state had falsified evidence, and now they're lying about everything to cover it all up. And that's just the beginning of it. That's right. The map.
Haig claimed the evidence in his case was tampered with, and the map used against him was falsified by altering the boundaries.
The map. There isn't a word in this order. There's not a word of this false map. And how many of you were at the oral arguments 3 years ago when this was the sole item? It's a conspiracy.
The courtroom's closed.
And they used it at trial knowing it was false. That is another felony. And I'm putting my foot down because somebody has to.
I'm sorry, I have other...
So, well, you're going to have
to...
This one's more important.
Closed. There's no more hearings here. All right.
No.
With his fiery statement, Haig decided to stamp his authority, and so did the court deputies.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Taser. Oh my God. Oh my God. Stop.
Stop tasing him! Stop the tasing!
Stop! Judge, you need to stop this right now! Stop it! Stop it!
Stop the witness!
Stop it! Stop it now, Judge!
Despite repeated pleas from family members, the judge decided not to intervene and left the courtroom.
Right now, do something, Judge! Stop it, Judge! Stop it! Do your job! Stop this!
You are not, guys. Let's go protect. Stay on that side.
Don't hide! Stop this! Don't hide! Come out here and stop this crap! He's a citizen of the United States! He did nothing wrong!
David Haig was later charged with disorderly conduct for violating an order to leave the courtroom. He continues to fight for justice to this day. While a defendant got hit with 50,000 volts of current for lashing out, what happens when a victim's sons decide to take revenge? Like in the case of Dale Williams, who was facing murder charges in Youngstown, Ohio. In June 2017, Williams ran his ex-girlfriend Elizabeth Pledger Stewart's car off the road, causing it to crash. He then shot and killed the 46-year-old mother of two. After his arrest, Williams pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and weapons charges. Facing the possibility of life in prison, the 62-year-old appeared at his sentencing, where the victim's two sons decided to deliver some justice of their own. 30-year-old Anthony Dees jumped across a table, evaded the deputies, and dragged Williams down by his feet. Then, 23-year-old Jerome Stewart ran over to help his brother. The two delivered a barrage of punches and kicks to the defendant. As deputies struggled to contain the brothers, one officer pulled out a taser and shot Stewart. Williams was escorted from the courtroom as he wiped the blood off his face. Finally, the two aggrieved sons were arrested and removed from the courtroom. They later faced charges of assault, contempt of court, and obstruction of justice. As for Williams, he was later sentenced to 23 years to life in prison for murdering his ex-girlfriend, while a defendant was viciously assaulted by the sons of the woman he killed. What happens when a victim attacks his attacker? Like in the case of Eric McCullough, who was on trial for murder in Chattanooga, Tennessee. In July 2015, McCullough allegedly stabbed his niece Taisha to death outside an apartment and injured her boyfriend Antoine Lee when he came to her aid. The 46-year-old was arrested and charged with criminal homicide. Lee, who was in custody on an unrelated charge, was asked to testify against McCullough during the trial, when suddenly...
Back up, sir! Sir, back up!
Take him out. Take him out of the courtroom. As Lee crossed the courtroom, he lunged at the defendant and rained punches on him.
Back up, sir, back up!
Take him out. 4 officers grabbed the attacker and tackled him to the ground. One of them even pulled out a taser.
Back up, sir! Back up, sir! Sir, back up!
After the courtroom was cleared, the chaos spilled into the hallway, prompting a total lockdown.
We've got some folks out in the hallway who are out of control too, so watch them.
Sergeant Jackson, Central Patrol, we're going to be bringing those 2 inmates back. I need the jail locked down. Stop all inmate movement, assume emergency traffic.
In the end, Antoine Lee pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and was sentenced to 11 months and 29 days in prison. As for Eric McCullough, he was later convicted of voluntary manslaughter and faced 3 to 6 years in prison. While a defendant got the taste of his own medicine, what happens when a judge orders to stun a defendant? Like in the case of Delvin King, who was in a La Plata, Maryland courtroom appearing for a jury selection.
Statutes that violate the plain
Stop.
common right now.
Mr. Sheriff, do it.
25-year-old King was representing himself on gun charges after he was caught impersonating a cop during a traffic stop. 3 months earlier, King fled from court during a preliminary hearing and evaded cops for a few days before being caught. As a result, he wore a stun cuff on his ankle. Today, King appeared before 72-year-old Judge Robert Nally and claimed to be a sovereign citizen, insisting that his true name was not Delvin King. King ignored Judge Nally's questions and continued reading from his prepared statement.
Statutes that violate the plain common right.
Until, despite repeated warnings, King kept on questioning the court's jurisdiction, when finally the judge lost his patience and ordered a court deputy to activate the stun cuff. As King writhed in pain on the courtroom floor, Judge Nally decided to take a short break.
Mr. Sheriff, do it. Use it. All right, I'm going to take 5. Don't. He calms down, and I'll be back. Yes, sir. 5 minutes.
After the courtroom video became public, Maryland's highest court banned Judge Nally from the bench for life. He also pleaded guilty to misdemeanor civil rights violations and was sentenced to 1 year probation, a $5,000 fine, and mandatory anger management classes. As for Delvin King, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his crimes by a different judge. While a judge lost his job after shocking a defendant, what happens when a defendant lashes out at the victim's family?
Just like the family over there, they're happy. That's not what your brother or whoever he was. He didn't.
Like in the case of 35-year-old Curtis Travis, who was on trial for a hit-and-run murder in Fresno, California.
Of course, come on, I'm sitting in prison for the rest of my life for something I didn't even do.
In January 2011, Travis and his accomplice, 22-year-old Stephen Stowers, allegedly committed an armed robbery at a Northwest Fresno apartment complex and stole a pickup truck. While fleeing, they crashed into another vehicle, killing its driver, 50-year-old Eliodoro Ruvalcaba. Both men were arrested after DNA evidence placed them at the crash site and charged with armed robbery and murder. However, Stowers was only found guilty of robbery and theft, while his murder trial ended in a hung jury. He was ultimately sentenced to 6 years and 8 months in prison. Meanwhile, Travis, who drove the truck that killed Ruvalcaba, suffered far more severe consequences.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Curtis Wayne Travis, guilty of first-degree felony murder.
During sentencing, Ruvalcaba's family was present in the courtroom, including his niece, who delivered an impact statement.
He was the most wonderful man, father, husband, uncle. Very important life was taken. And I just hope that you guys learn from this experience, because that's what my uncle would want.
However, Travis shared no such emotion and repeatedly lashed out at the judge, the prosecutor, and even his own attorney, insisting that he was wrongfully convicted.
Please, take me out of here, please. Take me out of here, like I asked.
Sir, you're going to be here for sentencing.
The blood showed that I was in the passenger seat. Do you understand that?
I understand.
Evidence!
I understand your argument, sir.
Yeah.
And it's not convincing.
But when Travis turned his attention toward the victim's family, court deputies decided to take matters into their own hands.
Just like the family over there, they're happy. That's not what your brother or whoever he was. He didn't want me to life.
After the deputies pacified him, the enraged defendant suddenly burst into tears. Travis's mother addressed the court and apologized on his behalf, telling the court that her son was not a monster, but a pathological liar who never intended to kill.
He didn't go out and take a gun and shoot somebody. I mean, it wasn't like he did it on purpose. I just apologize, and I'm sorry for everything. That's all I can say.
Ultimately, Curtis Travis was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the hit-and-run death of an innocent man. While a defendant burst into tears after being confronted, what happens when a poorly planned escape goes, well, poorly? Like in the case of Derek Wright, who was facing speeding charges in a Louisville, Kentucky courtroom. The mood in the court was pretty chill that day.
Bacon makes everything better.
But as the judge was looking at his paperwork, Wright attempted to walk away.
Whoa, where are you going?
Where you going? Down off the bus. No.
No.
Okay. So I can't go to the other show. Okay. What can I make a call from my mom? Amen.
It was discovered that in addition to his speeding charge, Wright had an outstanding warrant for domestic violence. But Wright believed there was some kind of mistake.
The case got dismissed. We're verifying it. I went to court for that Tuesday. It got dismissed.
Sir, I need you to calm down.
We always verify.
Yeah, but
if it's dismissed, you're good. If not, I'm going to take it into custody.
I need to call my mama if I'm going to get arrested, because this is something new to me, because this is the only thing that I was supposed to go to court for.
Eventually, it turned out the warrant was indeed active.
It's unserved, so it's still good. Okay. Wait, sir, you need to calm down, okay? They're gonna go ahead, they're gonna execute this. They'll let you take some time to call your mom. Just stay quiet, don't say anything, okay?
But Wright had other ideas. As he was taken to jail, Wright attempted to flee, but a deputy with a strong grip managed to bring him down. 2 more deputies ultimately subdued the situation.
Give your other arm.
I got it. Hold your arms out. 104, you can dance with that. We got it.
But it was not under control.
Quit fighting. Quit fighting.
Wright kept struggling until a deputy pulled out his taser and hit him with 50,000 volts of electricity.
Taser! All right, stop!
We done? Are we done? All right, we won't get you up. You're gonna walk back there real nice, okay?
Wright was removed from the courtroom, and he was not a happy man.
Lay on serious though? And then y'all started beating me up and type shit. I was just sitting there. And so I called pulled up and beat me up. Yes, I need to call my mama. Then nobody tell me I had a warning until I came to court, so y'all gotta beat me up and put blood all on my face and that?
Derek Wright's antics slapped him with additional charges of third-degree assault, resisting arrest, criminal mischief, and disorderly conduct. While a defendant received a major shock for his actions, what happens when officers come face-to-face with a Satanist? Like in the case of 18-year-old Leonid Greiser.
Так с сестрой расправились.
Who's on trial for murder in Russia. As per reports, the teenager brutally stabbed his sister at their apartment in Moscow, claiming that Satan had ordered him to do it. Greiser was found naked with his sister's body covered with demonic symbols painted with blood. During questioning, Greiser was seen smiling and free of remorse.
Зачем так с сестрой расправились?
Greiser claimed he had to kill his sister to get rid of his self-doubts.
Ну а что должен? Зарезать ее, убить ее? Как?
Нет, избавиться от сомнений.
От каких сомнений?
Police also found drugs at his apartment, which may have been a factor, but Greiser said he was aware of what he was doing.
Ну а зачем вы так с ней расправились?
Потому что я должен. Себе должен. Я должен так себе. Я осознанно это сделал.
Now in court, Greiser was put behind a glass cage to prevent him from escaping.
Не лезь, не надо.
But the defendant had other ideas.
Не лезь, не надо.
Куда ты лезешь?
When his first attempt to escape was thwarted, Greiser took the high road.
Слышь, что говорю?
Я слышу.
He somehow managed to squeeze through the roof of the cage and tried to escape through the false ceiling of the courtroom. Stunned officers desperately tried to get to the escaping prisoner. One of them managed to pull the defendant's pants down, but struggled to hold on to him. Finally, more officers arrived and threatened to tase the defendant.
Помогите мне! Помогите мне! Помогите мне! Дайте руку! Дайте руку! Дайте мне руку! Пускайте, говорю! Куда нажать? Дайте руку!
Сейчас, я тебе дам руку.
Eventually, Greiser gave up, crawled back into his glass cell, and was promptly asked to pull his pants back up.
Ко мне, блядь!
А, все, сука, все, я спускаюсь.
Я тебе дам сейчас.
Я спускаюсь. Быстро, блядь! Долбоёб, блядь! Быстро слез!
Одевайте ему нахер наручники.
Наручники, сейчас. На, ходи, иди сюда. Иди сюда, все. Иди сюда, одевай штаны. Штаны одевай. Да, это.
When the dust settled, Greiser was handcuffed to prevent any further shenanigans. Ultimately, a judge sentenced Leonid Greiser to compulsory psychiatric medical treatment every 6 months.